Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be tier ranking every series that I've read. I'm sure I missed some, but we have 64 to go through, and I was pretty strict with the criteria. At first I thought I was only going to do series that I've completed, and then I realized that just based on my reading trends, because I tend to not continue with a series if I wasn't liking it, if I only did all of the series that I've finished, they would only be in like the top ones of the tier. So I changed my criteria to series that I've read at least the first 2 books for. I've been seeing a ton of people do this video, and I know a lot of people are over it at this point, so if you want to peace out, totally fine, but I like watching them. I think they're fun. I wanted to try. I think the first person who did this was Chandler. At least that was the first video that I saw. I think this should be a fun time because I have a really weird mix of books, because I have the books that I've read lately and then I've got books that I read when I was like 13. So since we have 64 books to get through, let's just get straight into it so this video doesn't end up being super long. So the tiers that I created were 10 out of 10 would die for, trash but I love, nostalgic faves, just okay or disappointing, not for me, and yikes. These are all of the series that we have to go through. I guess we'll just start in order. So first we have Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This one I read, I think, back in like 2014, and I think this one was just okay for me. I was never super into it. That was a different time in my reading life when I finished every series that I started. I think if I read this book for the first time today, I would have stopped after the first book. I am excited for the adaptation though, but it's not my favorite. It's not super memorable for me. But then we have The Immortal Rules by Julie Kagawa, and this is 10 out of 10 would die for. I read these books, yeah, back in like 2015, but I still think of them very fondly. They are post-apocalyptic vampire romances, and 10 out of 10 would die for. Highly underrated. Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. I read again, I think in 2014 or somewhere around there, sometime in high school. This is hard because I actually really liked the first book. If we're talking just the first book, I might put it in like nostalgic faves or trash but I love. But the rest of the series I really didn't like. I think it had a lot of potential. It had a really interesting world and I liked this first book. But the series overall I think is just okay and disappointing. I got halfway through the final book in the series, got so annoyed that I DNF'd it and then unhauled it. If that tells you anything. Pretty Little Liars. I read this in middle school. I vividly remember reading this in my 7th grade math class. I'm gonna put them in nostalgic faves. This is not the kind of book that I'm like at all interested in reading anymore. Like this is not a genre that I pick up. But that was really before I got super into reading, and that was one of the first series that I really remember picking up voluntarily and reading in middle school. So, and then I went on to watch the TV show and stuff. So yeah, I just have like good memories associated with that series. The Wake series by Lisa McMahon, another series that I read in high school. I think this one was just not for me. Again, I don't think I would have finished it if I'd read it today. It's a very dark series. It just, the books are super short and it's just kind of disturbing. I don't think it's bad at all. It just definitely wasn't for me. TTYL, we're also gonna put in nostalgic faves. That's something I read when I was 13. That was like the rebellious thing that I did when I was 13. Or maybe I was younger than 13. They're very inappropriate books considering these like super cutesy covers. And I stayed up till like 3 in the morning reading them. Reboot by Amy Tintera. I liked this one. It's a duology. I don't know. It's not a favorite, but it wasn't just okay. I should have put another tier in here. Like it was good. I guess we'll put it in just okay, but I would recommend reading it. I thought it was good. Then we have Marked by PC and Kristen Cast. I've actually only read the first book in the series, but I felt like we had to include it because everyone knows this is my most hated book ever. So we're gonna put this series down in yikes. I'm well aware that that could have been a very different spot had I read this earlier. I can't remember when I tried to read this. I feel like it wasn't that late. I think I may have still been in high school, but if I tried to read this around like the Pretty Little Liars era for me, I probably would have loved it. Alas, now it is one of my most hated books. Now we have Delirium by Lauren Oliver. We're gonna put this in nostalgic faves. Same kind of era, read those around the same time. One of the first young adult series that I really remember being like super into, like really invested in the characters, loved it. Really helped me get into reading, so I have a lot of really good memories associated with that one. Did any of you watch the TV show pilot? It didn't get picked up, but they have a pilot out there that you could watch, which was actually kind of decent. I kind of liked it. Now we're gonna go to Twilight. Trash, but I love. Again, this is a nostalgic, this could also go in nostalgic faves. I read this when I was in 6th grade. Really got me into reading. I used to share the books with my math teacher. We would swap them back and forth, so I think of that series very fondly. Three Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake was not for me. I read the first 2 books in the series and I don't think they're bad by any means. I just really wasn't invested, and I don't plan on continuing with the series. It just wasn't for me. A Lesson in Thorns by Sierra Simone. This one's hard because I really liked the first one. I feel like the first one would be in Trash But I Love. And then I hated the second one. The second one would literally be in Yikes. So I don't know. Where do we put this one? Because it wasn't just okay. The first one I really liked. And this first one definitely doesn't belong in Yikes. We're gonna put it in Trash But I Love. Just don't read the second book. Or who knows, maybe I'll read the third book and maybe it'll redeem it. I don't know. Cinder. Let's put this in nostalgic faves too. I read this in high school. These were the books that I had under my desk during the standardized testing that we had to do, and I would pull it out when I finished my test, so I liked them. I thought they were fun. The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, I feel like at one point would have been in 10 out of 10 would die for. My enthusiasm, I feel like, is not anywhere near what it used to be for the series, but we'll leave it in nostalgic faves because there was definitely a time when I would have said this was one of my favorite series. I actually think in my very first booktube video back in 2016 I said this was one of my favorite series. Still good, but I'm not that attached to it anymore. Pivot Point by Casey West. This was a pretty old one. This is a duology. It's not a favorite, so I'm really wishing I put another tier here. But it wasn't just okay. Like, it was pretty solidly good, but we'll put it in just okay because it's the same, kind of on the same level as Reboot, so I would still recommend reading it. I liked it. Throne of Glass, we're gonna put in just okay. I did read the whole series and there were parts of the series that I really loved, but I don't think I was ever that invested in the books. I don't know. It's not a favorite is the problem, but I did really like some characters and some aspects of it, and I did get pretty invested in a couple of the books. Like, I really liked Queen of Shadows, but it's not a series I'm ever gonna go reread. The Cruel Prince we're gonna put in Trash But I Love, despite being super disappointed with the last book in the series. I think I still really enjoyed the series overall. I think it's complete trash, but I loved it. Lady Midnight we're gonna put in Not For Me. Yeah, other Shadowhunter books are in here somewhere, but Lady Midnight I feel like I was supposed to pick up. Like, everyone was talking about it when it first came out. This was when I first started my booktube channel, and I felt like I had to read it because I'd read all of the other Shadowhunter books. And I hadn't realized yet that, like, I'm just kind of over the whole Shadowhunters thing and I don't want to keep reading all of the series. And so I read Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows, and objectively I think they're really good. I'm just so over the series and I just don't care anymore. So this series, and I definitely wasn't as attached to the characters in this series or that invested in this series as I was with the previous ones. So this one for sure is just not for me. We're gonna put To All the Boys I've Loved Before in just okay. I read that again in high school. I never read the last book in the series, and they were fine. They were cute. A good friend of mine in high school was also reading them at the same time, so it was fun for us to like talk about them together, but I was never like that into them. Now, 1,000 Pieces of You we're gonna put up in nostalgic faves. I've only read the first two books and I loved them. And I own the third book. I just have completely forgotten what happened in the first two, so I need to reread them before I read the last book. But this is something I wholeheartedly recommend all the time. Really good series. The Lying Game we're gonna put in Not For Me, or maybe it was just okay. I'll put it in just okay. I went on to read that after reading the Pretty Little Liars books, and it wasn't the same. Harry Potter, we'll put in nostalgic faves. I did really love Harry Potter and I really love the movies, but I'm not like a diehard fan of it anymore, especially not at the level that a lot of people are. It's not an all-time favorite series of me, but it is very nostalgic. Under the Never Sky. Nostalgic faves. Again, a high school read. Would still recommend reading. I think they're super fun. They're like a post-apocalyptic romance. Very 2014-esque YA. Same with The Winter's Curse, nostalgic faves. I feel like all of the books that I read in this time of my life are gonna go in this one because I really loved them at the time. I just like don't think they would stand up for me. But then we're gonna go to The Darkest Minds. I'm actually gonna put this, believe it or not, up 10 out of 10 would die for. This for a while was one of my favorite books. I loved The Darkest Minds. I read it when it first came out. Again, I was in high school. This could easily go into nostalgic faves, but it's so nostalgic that I think I would put it in 10 out of 10 would die for. The Vampire Diaries. Yikes. I was reading these in middle school because the show came out and I loved the show, and the books are so different from the show, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but they also just weren't good. If you think Elena is unlikable in the TV show, read the books. Like, you thought it couldn't get any worse? I still think I read like 3 of them though. Awful books. But then we have The Diviners. And this is difficult because I definitely would have put The Diviners. I'm still gonna put it in 10 out of 10 would die for. One of my favorite series. I just finished the last book recently and I was really disappointed with it. But I think for my love, just for the first 3, it still deserves to go in the top tier. fantastic series. Dorothy Must Die is a yikes for me. I read the first 2 books. Things got bad real fast. The first book was like okay. The second book was real bad. Hex Hall was not for me. Even when I read them, I was pretty young when I read them, and even then I didn't love them that much. They're not bad. I just was never emotionally attached to them whatsoever. Wither is a yikes for me. Why I read more than 1 book in this series when I hated the first one, I will never know. 16-year-old Katie's decision making, who knows what was going on up there. Awful. I hate these books. Like, this was probably my most hated book up until I read Marked. I hated it. But then we have The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. 10 out of 10 would die for, just for Will Herondale. Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess in particular I loved. The first book was still pretty good, but the second and the third books sold it for me. I sobbed at the end of the last book. I'm very emotionally attached to these characters even 7 years later. So that one definitely made a big impression on me. We have Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. I feel like this is a nostalgic fave. I really liked it at the time. Werewolf paranormal romance. Again, very typical of YA during that time. I liked it. I had a good time with it. White Cat by Holly Black. Just okay. Of all the Holly Black series, this isn't my least favorite of hers, but it's definitely not one that I would recommend. It's an interesting world, these curse workers. It's been so long, but our main character comes from a family of like criminals, and he can do magic with his hands, so he has to wear gloves. I can't really remember anything that happened, but interesting premise, but the execution wasn't that great. The Hunger Games. This will either be nostalgic faves or 10 out of 10 would die for. I think I'm gonna put it in would die for. I really loved these when I read them when I was 13, but like now that I'm an adult and seeing our world now, like I can appreciate these books so much more now and how smart they are. Like I understand them a lot more and I can pick up on a lot more than I could when I was 13. So brilliant books. I appreciate them. I loved them when I read them for the first time, but I think I just appreciate them even more now. City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This is middle grade. Was just okay for me. I think that's just because I have a hard time connecting to middle grade, but it is really cute. Would recommend. Matched. We're gonna put this in yikes. I unhauled this whole series. Again, something I read in high school. So freaking bland. Honestly, just not good. Overall, just very boring. I definitely read the first 2 books. I think I may have started the 3rd one and then unhauled them. Wouldn't recommend. We're gonna put Hush Hush and Trash But I Love. I feel like this video is telling on me, and now you're all gonna be like, Katie, you have trash taste in books, and I'm okay with that. I read Hush Hush in high school. I think back on it fondly. I'm all about the paranormal romances. Jacobee, we're gonna move up to 10 out of 10 would die for. Not enough people have read this series. It's super different and quirky and kind of weird, but it's a fun time. Unearthly, we'll put that in nostalgic faves. Oops, nostalgic faves. This one was like half angel, half human love triangle. One with an angel boy and one with a cowboy. Read it. Divergent. I feel like it would have been nostalgic faves, but I hated Allegiance so much that I'm gonna put it in yikes because that's how salty I am. The Selection we'll put in nostalgic faves. I read those while I was babysitting in high school. I vividly remember staying up till like 2 in the morning waiting for the parents to get home and reading each of these books in one day. We're getting a TV show now. Or is it a movie? I can't remember. Either way, I'll watch it. I'm excited. I only read the first 3 books. I didn't read the continuation, and from what I've heard, it's not worth reading. I'm happy with the original trilogy. I thought it was cute. I had a fun time. We're gonna move A Quick Bite by Lindsay Sands up to Trash But I Love. This is an adult paranormal romance series that I've been reading this year with vampires, and I love it. So trashy, but I love it. I think I've read the first 4 books. Would recommend. We're gonna put an Emperor in the Ashes and Not For Me. Even though I think I gave the first book a 5 out of 5 stars. This was another one where I felt like I was supposed to like it. Because everyone loved it so much, and like objectively it's a really good book, and I read the first 2 books, and I think I got halfway through the 3rd book and then I stopped reading it. Objectively really good. Subjectively not for me. Wasn't super attached, didn't like it that much. Not gonna finish the series. Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, we'll put it in just okay. Disappointing. I liked the first one, super atmospheric, super creepy. The second book wasn't good at all, and yeah, I'm not particularly attached to it. We'll put City of Bones though in nostalgic faves. I loved these so much that I read them originally on my Kindle, and then I felt the need to go out and buy them in hardcover so I could put them on my shelves back when I had 1 bookshelf. Like I didn't even have these behind me. That bookshelf has since broken and I no longer have it, but I remember when I first started filling up my bookshelf proudly getting these hardcovers to put on there because they were so pretty. Very nostalgic. Had a good time with these for sure. The Thousandth Floor, we're gonna put in just okay, disappointing. I really liked the first two. I thought they were super fun. Just going off of the first two, I feel like I would put it in trash but I love, but I hated the last book. We'll still put it in trash but I love. The first two books were a good time. Angel Fall we'll put in nostalgic faves, even though again I really hated the last book in the series, but the first two I was super invested in, and I have so many memories associated with these books. This was when I was doing an online PE class over the summer in high school to get rid of one of my PE credits. So I was at the gym every day on the elliptical reading this on my Kindle. They were good. They were a fun time. I really liked these. Shatter Me we'll put in nostalgic faves. I liked Shatter Me. I read the first book in the new continuation. I haven't continued. I don't know if I will. I'm not as attached to these books as I was to others I read during this time, but I enjoyed these in high school. We're gonna put Dead Until Dark in either yikes or not for me. This is the first book in the Sookie Stackhouse series. I really wanted to like it because I love the TV show True Blood, but the books were really disappointing. Maybe I'll put it in disappointing. We'll put it in disappointing. A Court of Thorns and Roses. Where should this one go? We'll put it in trash, but I love. I think that's fair. Especially the second one. Trash, but I loved it. Rebel Belle, we're gonna put in yikes. Which is heartbreaking because the first book I would put in like 10 out of 10 would die for. But the second two books I hated so much that I unhauled them. So the series overall, we put in yikes. Anna and the French Kiss. We'll put in just okay. I definitely wouldn't like them as much if I read them now. At the time, in high school, they were fine. They were cutesy. I hadn't really read much to compare them to, but from what I've heard from people who try to read them for the first time now, they're super problematic. I don't really remember what happens in them, except for that the girl is helping the guy cheat. So yeah, I don't know why I liked this to begin with. We're gonna put the Beautiful Demon series by Sarah Cannon and just okay. I read the first 3 books last year and they were okay, just not super memorable. Vampire Academy will go up into trash, but I love. I know I get questions on like every video, when are you gonna keep rereading the Vampire Academy books? I will. I promise. I just haven't been in the mood to read them, and I don't want to force myself to read them when I'm not in the mood for them because I'm not gonna enjoy them. So when I'm in the mood to get back into that series, we will continue with the 4th book. I promise. Because I too want to get to Bloodlines. We will get there. I promise. Hopefully soon. I feel like I'm getting ready to read another one. Fallen. Heck yeah. Trash, but I love. These books are awful. Like, if you're not gonna take a recommendation from this video, don't go read these books. They're so bad, but I love them. They were so much fun reading in high school. I actually think I listened to them all on audiobook, and the audiobooks were really fun, and I just watched the movie recently. So yeah, very trashy, but again, I have a weakness for paranormal romances. I just have a lot of fun with them, no matter how bad they are. Caraval, this is hard. I have no idea where to put Caraval. I think we'll put Caraval in trash, but I love. Because I really liked the first 2. Again, I found the last one really disappointing. There's obviously a trend here. A lot of people don't like these books, but I think they're fun. Trash, but I love. Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I have no idea where to put this one. It's not a favorite for me. I really loved it. I read the first 2 books and I gave them both 5 out of 5 stars, but I never read the last one, and now I've just completely lost interest. So where does one put this? We'll put it in nostalgic faves, I think, because I did really like it when I read it. I just read it at a really hard time in my life, and I feel like that kind of tainted the experience. But they are really good books. I would recommend them. The Archived by Victoria Schwab goes up into 10 out of 10 would die for. I think these books are so underrated. They're so good. It's a duology. It was supposed to be a longer series, and we never got any more books, unfortunately, but I really, really liked them. If you like your love interests wearing eyeliner, read it. We're getting down to it. Okay, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, not for me. Read the first 2 books, recently unhauled them, never read the last one. Objectively good, not for me. Grave Mercy by Robin Lefevre's, 10 out of 10 would die for. Assassin Nuns, fan-freaking-tastic. Love that series. Obsidian by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the first book in the Lux series. Honestly, I think we'll put this in trash, but I love. I read half of the last book, DNF'd it, and then unhauled it because I was over it by then. But I blew through the first 4 books like really quickly and had a really fun time with them. They're very trashy and really fast paced, and I think once you get to the end of it, you realize that they're not good, but while you're reading it, it's fun. So trash, but I love. Wouldn't reread, but trash, but I love. Six of Crows. not for me. I think I gave the first book 5 out of 5 stars. This was another one that when I read it, I felt like I was supposed to like it. And it was good. Like, objectively, good series. I didn't care that much. It's definitely not a favorite. Maybe not for me. Maybe just okay. I feel like it was just okay. The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer, 10 out of 10 would die for. I love those books. I love them with every part of my soul. I've reread them several times. Big nostalgic favorite for me. Found this actually at a used bookstore when I was 16. Fell in love. So good. And last but very certainly not least, Bloodlines, which we are moving all the way up to 10 out of 10 would die for. Is that a spoiler if I tell you the couple in this book? One of my all-time favorite ships though. Oh, so freaking good. Actually, making this video has gotten me excited to continue my reread, so maybe we'll pick up Blood Promise today. So there you have it. I think this is a good kind of representation of my reading tastes, at least. I'm second guessing some of my placements. Maybe I just didn't make good enough tiers to put in, but the 10 out of 10 would die for sure. Love these books. Trash but I love these books. Nostalgic favorites were a fun time. Just okay, disappointing. I feel like the name makes it sound worse than it is. I feel like this tier in particular is more of a mix. Like, books that were okay / good, and then also some books that were just kind of disappointing. But then not for me, and yikes speak for themselves. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I would love to hear down below in the comments what you thought of some of these series, if you agree with my placements, if you disagree. It's cool either way, it's just my opinion. But this was fun to do, to just kind of walk down memory lane and remember all of these series. If you're new here, maybe subscribe and stick around. I would love to have you. My novel, The Anti-Virginity Pact, is coming out in June. You can pre-order it right now, and my poetry collection, The Sweetest Kind of Poison, is already out if you want to get a copy. All of my links will be down below in the description if you want to come follow me elsewhere, or if you're looking for an editor. I do freelance editing. I have my services linked down below. I also run a book club. Anything you could want will be down in the description, and I will just see you guys in my next video very, very soon. Bye.
So hit me. So hit me. So hit me. First a confession. With you, I feel a connection. With